So hey guys, today's topic of the video is going to be about an introductory video of Jacques Lacan. The first video I have covered before this topic is Sigmund Freud, the whole guide to Sigmund Freud. And after Jacques Lacan's video, I will be posting parts of the videos like the imaginary, the symbolic, and the real, the imaginary, and the symbolic parts of Jacques Lacan's theory. So in this video we will be focusing about the main theme of what Jacques Lacan want to discover and what is his theory about. But in this video I will be giving a small introduction of Sigmund Freud as well. So starting with the theory from Sigmund Freud, Sigmund Freud says that a human mind is a human self is made up of the unconscious and the consciousness, which is the id and the ego. So Freud introduces the idea of human self and human subject, which is radically divided between the two parts, which is the consciousness and the unconsciousness. For Freud and for psychoanalysis in general, actions, thoughts and beliefs and the ideas of the self are primarily determined by the unconscious and its drive and desires. So introducing who is Jacques Lacan. Jacques Lacan is a French psychoanalyst who is originally trained as a psychiatrist, and in the 1930s and 1940s he worked with psychotic patients. He begins in the 1950s to develop his own version of psychoanalysis based on the ideas being articulated in structuralist linguistic and anthropology. And you might think of Lacan as a Freud plus de Saussure plus Levi-Strauss plus Derrida. So he uses all the concepts of Sigmund Freud, but his so Sigmund Freud, Ferdinand de Saussure, Jacques Derrida, and Claude Levi-Strauss. I have made videos on all these four figures. Link will be given in the description. So but major thing but the main influence and precursor to Lacan's theory is Sigmund Freud, and that's the main theory, and Lacan interprets Sigmund Freud theories. But before Freud there was a theory of humanism, and what Lacan do. So Freud, he interprets Freud in the light of structuralism and post-structuralism, and turning the psychoanalysis from the humanist perspective to the post-structural perspective. So in this video in this slide we will be viewing what Sigmund Freud says, what we learned from Sigmund Freud. So before Sigmund Freud there was the humanist notion of human being who has free will and determination. But what Freud does is to take the free will out of human and replaces it with the unconscious mind, which is made up of the unexpressed or repressed desires. This notion of the unconsciousness destabilizes the idea of humanist freedom and the humanist idea that the self could do anything, and it does not need any kind of repression. Because Sigmund Freud say that, but Sigmund Freud says that there is no free will. A person is not free, so there is no humanism. Freud proves it that he says that because the unconscious mind is filled with those things that are not freely expressed, so where is the free will? So as a result, the rational mind of the humanist theory got replaced by the unconscious mind in the psychoanalytical system. But Freud gives us a hope that there is a way of finding free will if we express all these things that are unexpressed. So he simply want to say to bring the pleasure principle to the reality principle, or bring the unconscious or the repressed desires to the conscious, and it will help to minimize the neurosis or repression in the unconscious. So Freud's goal was to strengthen the ego or the unconscious, or I is also ego, so that it will be more powerful in controlling the unconscious mind. So, but to Lacan, how Lacan contradicts Sigmund Freud? Lacan say that Freud's project seem impossible to Lacan. Why? Because ego cannot take place the unconscious or empty the unconscious, because ego or I self or the consciousness is an illusion. It is not a material or actual thing, but it is a product of illusion, and it's a product of the unconscious self. I will explain that part in the second part of this section, which I will be covering in the real and then the imaginary and the symbolic. In the imaginary, I will explain that concept, that how of self is formed. When a child sees himself or herself in the mirror, and he forms the illusion of the self, that it is I, that the person in the mirror is I, but that is an illusion, because it is the mirror. The mirror is not showing you yourself. So Lacan's psychoanalysis is about the unconscious is the foundation of all being. So I hope that you got this idea pretty well. So moving towards what were the field of interest of Sigmund Freud and Jacques Lacan. So Sigmund Freud, for Sigmund, the mission, the project of Sigmund Freud is to look that how a polymorphously perverse child forms an unconscious using the Oedipus complex, right? Which I have covered in the last video. And a superego becomes and how a superego forms, and a child and a perverse child becomes a civilized adult. Alright, but Lacan, what's the interest of Lacan in psychoanalysis? He says that how the infant gets the illusion of self. There is no self, but there is an illusion of self. Alright, ourselves are tricked. We are tricked to feel ourselves. So ourselves are illusions. And how child forms an illusion of ego. Alright, what is ego? The conscious self, which is identified by word I. So we will be moving towards the other theory of Jacques Lacan, the notion of the unconscious by Jacques Lacan. So central to the perception, to the conception of the human in the theory of Jacques Lacan is the notion that the unconscious, which governs all factors of human existence, is structured like a language. So Jacques Lacan says that the unconscious is structured like a language. He bases this sentence, he bases his theory on Freud's account of the two main mechanisms of the unconscious process, the condensation and displacement. And both these processes are essentially linguistic phenomena, which I have told you the metaphor and metonymy in the first video of Sigmund Freud, where meaning is either condensed as in a metaphor or displaced as in metonymy. Lacan's note that Freud's dream analysis and most of his analysis of the unconscious symbolism used by his patients depends on wordplay or puns or associations. So that all things are chiefly verbal. The use of pun or jokes and parapraxis and all these things, a slip of tongue, all these things are verbal, through which we form the idea of the unconscious. So Lacan says that our unconscious is structured like language. So that's why we understand our unconscious in these all words like slip of tongue, pun, association, etc. So Lacan says the content of the unconscious are totally aware of language and are particularly of the structure of language. So moving towards the what Lacan says about language. When Lacan talks about the structure of language, he follows the ideas laid out by Ferdinand de Saussure. But Lacan modifies this idea of value by Ferdinand de Saussure, where de Saussure talks about the relation between signifier and signified, which form a sign, and insisted that the structure of language is the negative relation of the value among sign. What is value? Value is that one sign is what it is because it is not the other sign. Like A sign is A because it is not B. A sign is A because it is not 3 or 2. Alright? So B is B because it is B, it is not A. So that's the concept of value. So Lacan focuses on the relation between signifiers alone. Alright, so Lacan does not talks about the signifiers. Lacan just focuses on the signifiers. So the element in the unconsciousness, such as the wishes, desires or images, are all signifiers. So they are usually expressed in the verbal terms. So what we do and what we speak, we just give just words or way to expression to our unconscious wishes by using the verbal tactics. Alright, so these signifiers form a signifying chain. One signifier has a meaning only because it is nothing a signifier because it is not the other signifier. So for Lacan, there are no signifiers. There is nothing a signifier ultimately refers to. If there were signifiers, then the meaning of any particular signifier would be relatively stable, and there would be a relation of signification between signifier and signifieds, and the relation would guarantee some kind of fixed meaning, but there are no fixed meanings. Lacan says that the relation of signification don't exist in the unconscious. Rather, there are only negative relations, the relation of values, where one signifier has meaning only in relation to its signifier, which is it is not. I hope that you understand this concept. So moving towards the idea of the chain of signifier by Jacques Lacan. So Jacques Lacan says that I have told you in the previous slide that for Jacques Lacan there are no signifiers. So there is only a chain of signifiers and they are constantly sliding, shifting and changing and circulating. Keep in mind the idea of Derrida's notion of center, which I have made a video on and I have provided the link in the description. So no center, nothing. So there is no center for all these signifiers and nothing makes the stable meaning to any signifier. So Derrida's concept works here. So there is no way to stop sliding from one signifier to the next. One signifier leads to another leads to another, and there is a never ending signified or signifier. it's a continuously and ever flowing, ever changing chain of the signifiers. Alright, so it is like a dictionary. You look for one word and you get many other words, but you never get the thing that the word supposedly represents. So that is the idea of chain of signifiers. So Lacan says that the unconscious is made up of continuously circulating chain of signifiers with no center. So Freud says that how can we make a form or ordered meaning or ordered person or ordered self from these chaotic desires in the unconscious. But Lacan says that there is nothing happening which Freud's want. Alright, Lacan says that he defines self. How Lacan defined self? He says that self is a process of is a becoming process. It's a process of becoming adult, and a self is a process of to fix and to stabilize and to stop the circulation of chain of signifier, so that stable meaning and the meaning of word I become possible. Though Lacan of course say that this possibility is only an illusion, an image created by a misconception of the relation between body and self. So Lacan says that it is not happening. You would not achieve that perfection. You will always be finding meaning to yourself, but there is no self, because self is an illusion. So that's the core idea of Lacan's theory. Alright, so ending this video, I will conclude this video. So there is a word particular, so I will discuss about the signifier I, the word I, which is a very peculiar kind of signifier. It has even within a stable system like the social, like I has value. I is not I because one I is not the other I. If I say I, it means me. If you say I, it is you. So the word signifier is I is one, but there are different signifiers or meanings of word I. So I is not going to mean one thing all the time. So I is very different kind of meaning. If I say page 130 of a book, it means page 130 of the book. Everyone in the class will open that page. But if you see the word I, it means different for every person. So that was all about this video. Thank you. Hey guys, today's topic of the video is going to be about the real stage of the theories of Jacques Lacan and the development of an individual psychologically and the individual self. So in this video I will be discussing the real stage of the personality development by Jacques Lacan, and in this video I will be giving some references from Sigmund Freud as well. So hope that you should watch all these videos and the series of videos. So in this video I will be covering the real, and the next video I will be covering the imaginary, and in the third video I will be covering the mirror stage, and in the fourth stage I will be covering the symbolic stage. So starting with the introduction of with a summary from Sigmund Freud and Jacques Lacan. So Sigmund Freud, the three stages of the development of an individual from polymorphous individual to a heterosexual reproductive individual. So these three phases comes by line: the oral phase, the anal phase, and the phallic phase, and the latency stage and the puberty phase. So I have covered all these topics into the series of the Sigmund Freud. You can watch by the link in the description. So the Oedipus complex leads to the castration complex, and it ends the polymorphously perverse individual and creates a reproductive heterosexual adult in boys. So that was about the Freud's theory. But Jacques Lacan, his theories of the three stages, the need theory, the demand theory, and the desired theory, which is the real, the imaginary, and the symbolic, that corresponds to Sigmund Freud's three stages of development, which are the oral, the anal, and the phallic stage. So these are the same like Sigmund Freud's stages. So the real, the imaginary, and the symbolic are same like the Sigmund Freud stages. So that develop an individual to a normal adult. So the symbolic realm. So the symbolic order is all about the structure of language. So it is like the structure of language in which a person is developed from no language to a language in a society. So a person can desire, and that's the definition of adult. So a symbolic realm is all about desire and language, and that's adulthood. So symbolic realm is like the structure of language, and we enter to become speaking subjects in this realm, or when we say I, the signifier I means self, the signified self, which mean I am pointing towards myself, and you will be, when you say I, you will be pointing to yourself. So you have to express yourself by using a word I. So that's important in the symbolic stage. So moving towards the real stage, all the points I have written on this slide are all about the real stage. So in the coming slides, all these points will be covered. So you can make a list out of that, so you can get all the points. So starting with the real stage. So real stage is also called the need stage. All right. So all needs of an individual are fulfilled in the real stage. A person needs milk or sexual gratification, and that infant can get that milk from mother breast. All right. So the need state of the real state are equal to Sigmund Freud's oral stage. All right. So the baby is inseparable from mother, and there is no distinction between self and other. So baby cannot distinguish between itself and the breast of mother or mother. So a baby feels that the breast and his mouth both are the part of his body. All right. So the baby is not individual yet. It has not distinguished between self and other. It's self and other thing. So this stage provides a lot of security, comfort, and food. So that's are all. So that stage is driven by need, and that are provided to a baby. So the maternal realm or the real realm provides all the needs, all the satisfaction to the needs of the baby. So that needs are food, comfort, and safety. So these are all satisfiable needs, and these are satisfied by an object. It can be mother's breast or a feeder, anything, or a bottle feeder or anything. So there is no distinction between self and other, just like Sigmund Freud's theory of oral stage. So the baby does not recognize the breast part of another body. So there is no distinction between self and other. I'm repeating this thing again and again because it will be very important in the later slides, in the slides which are imaginary and the symbolic. So in coming videos, because baby has no concept of the whole individual. The baby has no concept of the whole individual. The baby think that the breast is itself and the mouth is itself. The baby's mouth and breast, we think that the mother and the baby itself both are selves. They are not other things. They are not two different things. They are one single thing, and that is self. So there is only need and satisfaction of these needs in this stage. So moving towards the next slide, which is all about the need stage, which is also called the state of nature, but that needs a tragedy to end. The real state is called need stage, and we can also call it the nature state. A baby is in the state of nature. The baby has not learned anything yet. So it needs a tragedy or a loss to end that stage. So need state is nature state, and it has to be broken up to form culture. To learn a culture or a societal rule or a civilization, and enter into the world of where people use language, you have to learn these things, and you will have to cut from the mother's body, and that is a tragedy, that is a loss of mother. Alright, so infant must be separated from mother to form its separate identity and to enter into civilization. So this separation is called loss or a tragedy. So baby knows now the difference between its mom and itself, and it becomes an individual being. So there is a sense of, there is the loss of primary sense of unity. So the mother is a symbol of nurturing and security and safety. So that has happened to the baby. The security and that attachment and the nurturing is lost now. The baby is on its own now. The baby is now free from mother. He is not dependent anymore, because it has to enter into a culture. It has to learn things. So, to become a civilized adult, first bear the loss of original unity. What was the original unity? The undifferentiated self and unselfhood, which is the mother and babies are one self. So you have to lose that sense that you and the mother was one thing. You are now separated from yourself, from your mother, and you are not mother's part, and mother is not your part anymore. You have to lose your mother. Just that. I hope that you understand that slide. So there is no language in the real. So baby who has not made his separation yet is satisfiable needs, and there was all needs are satisfiable with objects. There is no distinction between self and other, and that's the realm of the real. The real is a psychological phase where there is this original unity. Original unity is that the union with his mother, with that babies with mother. So because of that, there is no absence, lack or loss. The real is about perfection, completeness and fulfillment. So there is no need for anything else to be satisfied. So there is no absence and no loss. So there is no language in the real. So that was all about today's lecture, which is the real. And I will bring that slide to you again. So the real, in which we have discussed the three things. So there is a completeness in real, there is no language in real, there is no absence or lack in the real. So there is no separation from mother yet, and there is no need. And so there are just need and satisfactions, and the boundaries between self and other are not recognized. So next video will be about the imaginary state. You can also subscribe to this channel. You can share, like and comment for further inquiry. Thank you. Hey guys, today's topic of the video is going to be about the imaginary and the real stage of Lacan, or Lacan idea of child's development. But before watching this video, I will suggest you to watch the idea of the real which Lacan gives, and after that you should watch this video, and after this video I will be uploading the symbolic realm, the idea of the symbolic. So starting with this slide, I will make you make a brief summary of what the idea of the real is. So the baby is attached to mother where we are breastfeeding. So there is no separation from mother. There is no boundaries of self and other defined yet. So there is a need and satisfaction all along, and there is no language, all completeness. There is perfection. The baby needs and gets satisfied. And there is no lack or absence, so there is no language developed, and so all of the points I have covered. So now I will be moving towards the imaginary. What the imaginary is all about. So the imaginary, I have written the points here, and I will discuss these points in the coming video. So in the book by Sigmund Freud, Beyond the Pleasure Principle, a kid his nephew throws away something and says, "Gone." And when the ball or the thing or the toy come to the baby, again the baby says, "Here." So this is the game of. So this game is very symbolic because it works out the child's anxiety about his mother's absence and the loss of beloved object. So the thing which is gone from the baby, the toy or anything, the baby will use word gone, which is gone. And when the thing comes back to it, when the mother or anything come back to it, or a toy come back to that baby, the baby feel happy and says, "Here." And that's how a baby expresses the loss of the mother, and that's the anxiety in baby when he says "here" or "gone." So this exercise is very symbolic for the baby. So he says "here," and it contains a pleasure of gaining that object. So it's an anxiety producing situation, and I will let you know that how Lacan make use of this example. So in the symbolic realm, the language is it's all about language. So symbolic realm is all about language, and I will make a video on that tomorrow. So Lacan focuses the previous case, like the aspect of language. So he focuses the word, the binary, gone and here. Gone, the presence. Gone is attached with absence, and here is attached with presence. So the child's entry into the symbolic realm. So the these two words, these are the very important, for these are the key to find out that a child has been entered into the symbolic realm and into the structure of language. So the child is going to express his or her feeling through these words, through language. So that marks the importance of symbolic realm. Alright, so the language is all about loss and absence. A thing is not with us and we want to gain that thing. We use language for it. We express our feeling for it. Alright, in the real stage, when baby was attached with mother and all its needs were satisfied, the baby did not speak. That was because there was no absence. But in this stage, when the mother is lost from the baby, so baby is separated from mother, a sense of loss is attached now, and the child suffers the loss of mother, so it will use languages. But here the imagery stage lies. Alright, so the language is all what I have told you. If your world has fullness or completeness or perfection, so you will need no language. I hope that point is clear to you. So moving towards the next slide. So no language in the real stage. I have told you in the last slide that in the real stage there is no language because there was no lake, no absence, no emptiness, no lake or no void or no loss. So in the real realm, in the real stage, there was completeness and satisfaction. Alright, because the child was meeting its needs. Alright, all its needs were satisfied. So in the real stage, the real stage is beyond language. Alright, it happens beyond language because language is not used in it, and you cannot express the real stage in language because it is impresentable in language. So real or neat phase, we use the real and neat phase interchangeably. So it happens from birth to 6 to or 18 months. So from here the baby shift from needs to demand. From the real to symbolic, the baby is changed from needs to demand. So demand is satisfiable with objects. Alright, so demand is not satisfied with the object. I have wrong the earlier line. So the demands are not satisfied with objects. It was need that was satisfied with objects. It was satisfied. The need was satisfied with the feeder bottle, with mother's breast or anything else. But it is demand now. After the loss of mother, the baby has entered into demand stage, and demand is not going to satisfied with anything. Demand is always, what is demand? So demand is always recognition and love from other. All we people crave for love and identification or recognition that we do something great. In all people, in all of us, there is a kind of feeling that we want to be loved and admired. So in the next slide, so it's a long slide. So in this process, baby gets aware that it is separate from its mother when she is gone, and things exist are not part of its babies. So the idea of other is created in baby. So the thing the baby cannot get, that's other now. So the idea of other is established for baby. But the idea of self is not now understood by baby. Baby just know the idea of other. And in the mirror stage, the baby will get the idea of self. I will let you know how. But that binary pair of self and other is not yet created in baby because it has no coherent self about, it has no coherent idea about self yet. So because baby has just found the idea of other. So the awareness of separation or the sense of other creates anxiety in baby and a sense of loss in baby. So the baby demands reunion. So the baby want to go into the real stage again, but it is not going to happen in this world. All right. So where were we? So it's not going to happen in this world. So baby demands reunion and want to be in the real with mother, where all needs were satisfied, but it is impossible. Baby's demand will be fulfilled by others. Baby want for love, recognition, and admiration from others to achieve original unity. And once the baby enjoyed that unity, once the baby enjoyed in the real stage, and that want and the baby now wants the idea of other to be removed. So baby don't want to know about what other and what self is. Baby just want a reunion with mother. So the demands. So what's the demand? That demand is for fullness or completion or end of loss of mother. So I told you on an earlier slide that it is the demand for love and recognition which makes a baby complete. All right. So so the sense of otherness is important for baby to become a self. Because what is other? Because other, one thing is other and one thing is self. All right. So if other is created, there would be an idea of self as well, but it is not created in baby's mind till now. All right. So a subject. What is the idea of what is self? So it is the idea of I. So it is the idea of I which a person recognize with self. Self is the idea of I which we use in a sentence as object or a subject. All right. So it makes a person cultural being. So moving towards our next slide. So what's demand for love? So demand for recognition from others. So the baby demands for recognition and from others, and that cannot be fulfilled. So the baby cries for milk and the breast fulfill needs, but no object can satisfy demand. All right. So baby cannot have recognized the ways how it is satisfied because it has no sense of self as a thing. So the baby knows other, and other means separation. So the baby does not know what self is, but until the next slide, which is going to be the mirror stage, and I'm about to cover that slide as well. So hey guys, today's topic of the video is going to be about the mirror stage. But before the mirror stage, I will show you the slide containing the summary of the imaginary stage, which I have covered just now. So this is the whole summary of the imaginary stage. So moving towards the mirror stage. So mirror stage, before this mirror stage, the baby has no idea that what self is, but it has the idea what other is. So the idea of other is developed, but the idea of self is not developed yet. But in the mirror stage, the idea of self will be developed. So the mirror stage is very important because it forms baby the idea of self. All right. So now baby will get the idea of self. So the mirror stage is a stage that comes in the imaginary, and it also overlaps with symbolic stage. So I will keep that into the imaginary so that most of most of students would be clear in this assumption that it is something else, or like it is a separate stage. No, it's a part of the imaginary stage where it forms the idea of self through imagination. So starting with what is mirror stage. So at this stage, baby hasn't yet mastered its own body. So there is no control over its movement. So baby cannot control its muscles, like the defecation or pooing or toileting. It hasn't yet mastered its body, and there is no sense of a connected whole body. So the baby thinks that all of its body part are fragmented. Its thumb is at one place, its leg is at another place, its emotions are all the place. So the baby thinks that he is not a complete, whole, integral person. But the baby can imagine that the baby can be a complete whole, because he can imagine itself as a whole, because it has seen other people complete. Alright, when it sees to its mother, its father, other people, they are complete individuals, but the baby hasn't yet seen itself. So the baby thinks that I am fragmented, but the baby can imagine that it can be a whole, a complete as well. So the baby perceives through vision another person in a complete experience, and a complete and whole experience. So this vision gives us the perception of a whole picture that comprehend an object by feeling its parts. So the next slide, the mirror stage. In the mirror stage, no baby see itself in mirror. Alright, so that's an important slide. So during this time, the baby sees itself in the mirror. Alright, it looks at itself, its reflection in the mirror. Alright, and he looks back. So the baby look at the mirror, then he look back at other people, and then he look at its reflection again. When the baby sees itself in the mirror, and then look other people standing there, the baby look at the people, and then the baby look back at the mirror again. Alright, so the baby think that the baby is like other people. Right? The baby is complete as well. Like other people, there is a body, there is a whole body of the baby. So when, suppose the baby's mother or baby's father or the baby aunt or anyone or baby's grandmother holds the baby, and holding the baby, showing the baby in the mirror, and says that look at this baby, it's you. So this verbal reinforcement that creates a whole idea that it is me. So first the looking at the mirror, the image in the mirror, and then second thing is the verbal reinforcement that this is you. That creates the baby feel like that it is me, that it is myself. The baby encounter itself for the first time in the mirror. So it feels that it is an integrated whole like other people, because before this baby has seen other people as whole and itself as fragmented, and now it knows other people separate from it. So other people are other, and the baby in the mirror is itself. I hope that's clear to you. So fragmented body is led. So the fragmented body before mirror stage is transformed into an orthopedic vision of its body. Like orthopedic vision means that it serves as a supportive instrument which will help the child imagine itself as a whole, like a skeleton, like a support to its own self. Like I am this complete individual. I have bones, I have myself like just other people. So how does baby see itself as a self? So the baby anticipates that the sense of self, which is a sense. What is sense of self? A sense of identity as a unified and separate whole being. So this is self. Like self is a sense of identity, a baby's self of identity as a unified, a whole, a complete person, a complete another person. That's the self of a baby. Alright, so in the second point, what child sees in the mirror, when he looks at the child, so the child sees in the mirror that look like what the child sees when the child looks at other people, other real people. So verbal reinforcement, I have told in earlier slide that the verbal reinforcement, when someone points out at the mirror and asks the baby that it is you, the child, it is you. So that makes the child feel like it is the entity, that the entity showing in the mirror is really it, is really the baby itself. So the idea of the whole body, and the other thing, the I, the you, the word significance signified you and I. That make the baby see itself as an entity and as a in the mirror as a self. So the baby feels that it is me. So the ego or the self or the identity of the baby is created. All right. So misrecognition of identification. So the baby has seen itself and the verbal reinforcement that this is you, and the baby feels that this is I, you and I. So other people call the baby you, and the baby calls itself I. So I is equal to self or ego or the identification or misidentification. In this slide I will show you how. So Lacan used the words méconnaissance for the misrecognition in French. So what really is happening in this misrecognition to the baby? It's misrecognition. Keeping in view the previous slide, I will tell you how the misrecognition of the identification happens. So the child sees itself in the image in the mirror, all right, and thinks that it is me, it is the baby itself. So but it is not the child, but an image the child see. All right, so the baby does not see itself. It's not the baby in the mirror. The baby is on the opposite side of the mirror. It's just an image. It's just an image what the baby sees in the mirror, and nothing more. And the other people reinforces that misrecognition. They reinforce this misrecognition that it is you, using the pronouns you, that yes, it is you. So the idea of so the méconnaissance or the misrecognition, the baby see itself in the mirror, and the other people reinforce that idea that it is me, and the baby sees that it is really me. But what the baby sees itself is just an image in the mirror. It's not the child, the self. And the baby misrecognizes itself, its reflection with self, that yes, it is me, but it is a misrecognition. So another people give the baby a linguistic name or the signifier or you or I, and in reality of the connection between baby and a signifier I or you, a child's sense of itself, and his image or imago, the whole body in the mirror. So the word you or I is formed in connection of the body, of the baby's body on the opposite side of the mirror, and the child and the child's image in the mirror. So the you signifier, it just connects the child's figure with the child's self. So I hope that is clear to you. So how is ego created? Ego or self? I will use ego or self interchangeably because ego is a illusion. So the baby, all the life, the baby or an adult sees itself like a misrecognized self. So self is not real, it is an illusion because it is created out of misrecognition. So the child takes its image as a summation, as a sum of itself. Like the child sees that this image is me and this is myself, and that's all. Alright, so how ego or self is created? Ego and self is one thing. Alright, I will make that clear to you. So by the process of making misrecognitions, oneself in the image in the mirror I is created. So the misrecognition creates the armor or a weapon of the subject, and it is an armor or a weapon, and it is an illusion or misperception which surrounds the body, which surrounds and protects the baby's self. Alright, so whenever harm is happening to a person, the person sees itself like sees that thing a threat to itself. So the self is created, the illusion of misrecognition, the self or ego based on illusion of misrecognition is created, and that is a protection of the self from all other people. So in the last point, self, ego or identity, these are always a fantasy or imagination. There is no real self, and it is an imagination or fantasy. Why and how? An identification which is an external image without an internal sense of separate wholeness. So the baby has imagined itself in the mirror that it is me. Alright, so the external things are going to tell people that it is you, tell the kids that it is you, but it is not the kid. So that's why the name of this stage is called imaginary, because the idea of self is created through a sense of imagination or fantasy. So why mirror stage is in the realm of imaginary? So it's an important question, because most of the students are, I feel like they are too much confused in it, that is this the mirror stage into the imaginary state or not, or what? So imaginary state is the second stage, and the mirror stage is the part of the imaginary state. So it's clear to you now. So keeping in mind the last slide, I will tell you that's why Lacan calls the mirror stage the realm of imaginary, because the idea of self is created through an imaginary identification or misidentification with the image in the mirror, an alienated relation of self to its own image is created and maintained. So that's a very important slide. So that's after the things are written after, because it's very important. So why the name of the imaginary realm is named as imaginary? Because the idea of self is created through an imaginary identification with the image in the mirror. An alienated relation of self to its own image is created and maintained. Alright, So imaginary state is all the realm of images, like the baby has seen itself in the mirror, right? So the mirror image, the baby has seen in the mirror and created its idea of self, which is imaginary, which is based on images. So the imaginary is based on images, and conscious or it can be conscious or unconscious, and that stage exists before the symbolic or the pre-linguistic or the pre-audible. So after that will happen the linguistic stage or the symbolic or the audible stage of the Sigmund Freud. So because that is based on the perception or spectacular images or visual images. So it is almost third last slide. So recovery of the loss of mother, which happened in the realm of imaginary. So it's a very beautiful slide. So the baby wants to get attached with his mother. So the mirror image is the whole person or the image the baby mistake for itself. So in the whole person in the image in the mirror, the baby think that it is it, but it's not the baby in the image. All right. So the baby mistakes the image as itself. An ideal ego or ideal self is a perfect whole self with no imperfection, no lack, no absence or incompleteness. So the baby think itself like a perfect ego or a perfect self with no lack, no incompleteness, no imperfections. Alright, so ideal ego is internalized by baby. It's taken to its internalized by baby, because we create our sense of self or identity or misidentification with this ideal ego. Alright, I hope I have written things very simple because it's a very complicated topic, so I have made that very simple. Hence this perfection, wholeness compensates a baby's loss of mother. So keep in mind the first point and keep in mind the third point. So you will feel the baby has seen itself in the image and sees that it is perfect. It has no imperfection, and then read the last line. Hence, this perfection which the baby has derived from the image in the mirror compensates the baby's loss of a mother and the idea of oneness with her body, and the baby recovers this loss which happened in the realm of the real. So child discovers itself as other. So the child considers its self as other as well. How? The child, it's second last slide, it's an important concept. So the child considers itself as other. So the child's self-concept, the concept of self or identity or ego, will never match up to its own being. Alright? So its self's image in the image of itself in the mirror is smaller or more stable than the child which it feels itself, and is always other, something outside it than the child. So the child will all life misrecognize itself as other, because mirror image provides an illusion of self or a misrecognition of self. So the baby will always imagine itself as other, because it has formed its idea of self on the basis of the image on the mirror as other. So this slide, that how is self the other? So in the imaginary phase, the child assumes its idea of self by the mirror image it sees. It is explained. So in the mirror image, it builds a self and other division, a binary of self and other. Then this is me and these are other people. Alright, so this binary is created in the mirror stage. And the misidentification of self is always in terms of other. So the identification of, so it is clear that the identification of self is always in relation to other. What other is, what is self is not the other. Alright, so self is other. It means that the idea of self, I, is the other, the image the baby sees in the mirror. So self is other. This statement means that the idea of self, I, is the other, the image in the mirror the baby sees. So the concept of self, the misidentification with the image of an other is created. So self, the concept of self, which is the misidentification with the image of an other. So that's a tough concept, but you will watch the previous slide, so you will get the idea of it. I have explained that much. So in the last slide, we will find that there are different meaning of word other. So there are three meanings. First, other is not self or me. Alright, and the second meaning is the other becomes me and self in the mirror image. See the last slide, you can watch the last slide, so you can get the idea that other becomes me or the self in the mirror image. So the other is the other in the mirror. The photo of me in the mirror is other in the mirror stage. So, and the third meaning of other is with capital O. Other with capital O, and it means that the other me in the mirror, the self which is created, the illusion of self, the misrecognition of self, which is also other, and which is in the second point, which is in this blue highlighted point, and the actual other are the other people. All right, so other people. So the idea, the big O other is the other people. Alright, so the actual other people. So the notion of otherness come before sense of self. Alright, so when the baby was the baby lost its mother, it got the idea of other people. So it got not the idea of self. Idea of self is created later in the mirror stage. Alright, but the idea of other was formed before the mirror stage. So the baby encountered an imaginary phase associated with demand, and self is based on the idea of otherness. So that was all about the imaginary stage. So next will be about the symbolic. Make sure that you subscribe to this channel so you can get the idea. You can also subscribe to this channel. You can share, like and comment for further inquiry. Thank you. So guys, from there on I will be discussing the idea of the symbolic by Jacques Lacan. So in the first part of the videos of the series, I have discussed the psychoanalysis of Jacques Lacan. In the second, there was the idea of the real. Whereas in the third part, that was the idea of the imaginary, and in the imaginary there is a phase, the mirror stage. And after the mirror stage and after the imaginary stage, because mirror stage is a part of the imaginary state, so after the imaginary state we have the symbolic stage. And in the symbolic stage I want to tell you that the symbolic stage is associated with the idea of of learning a language, acquiring a language, and then finding a place in the world, in the real world, in the cultures, in the society. So in the symbolic realm, we have to learn or use the word I to refer myself. Okay, so in the imaginary, in the mirror stage, I have found the idea of self, but that self is based on an illusion or an other. All right, because I have seen my image in the mirror, it is not myself, but it is an other. So the idea of self is formed on the basis of other. So there is an other in myself, all right, which I have formed my ego or myself. All right. So starting the symbolic with, I will start the symbolic with the idea that the imaginary and the symbolic coexist on this phase. In the initials, like how a child has formulated the idea of otherness and its own self as the other in the mirror stage. So now child enters into the symbolic phase. So in the real, the mother, the baby was attached to mother for breastfeeding, and then in the imaginary, so in the after the real, the baby has suffered a kind of loss or tragedy when it is separated from its mother. So a kind of loss is happened to the baby, and it's kind of lack or void or absence. So baby has to compensate it. So in order to find this, in order to recognize and use this lack and find and make itself complete once again, it has to find itself. All right, it has the idea of other people, other, but it has no idea of self. So in the imaginary, in the mirror stage, the baby gets the idea of self. So in the symbolic realm, in the symbolic order, in the symbolic phase of Lacan, how the baby associates words to denote itself. So the symbolic and the imaginary phases overlap and coexist now. I will tell you how. So in the symbolic order, all the focus is on the structure of language. All right, so the structure of language, and we enter to and by this we are entered into the structure to become speaking subjects. We use language, we acquire structure of language, and then we become the acting, the speaking subjects in this world. In this world where there are cultures, there are laws, there are norms, etc. And we enter into this structure in this world as a speaking subject, and we use signifiers to connect it to signifiers, like we use word I to denote, to call ourselves, and that concept is signified. All right, so which means that saying I to denote, to mean that it is myself, to I is equal to myself. All right, so when you will say you, it will means that you is equal to I. All right, when I call yourself you, my word saying you is equal to you. All right, so the foundation of self happens in the imaginary phase, and finding this idea more completely, you have to watch the video or part of the imaginary stage. After that, you will get the idea of that. So, and the symbolic phase represent itself based on other with I. So I is equal to self, all right, or ego. What's all right? So in the symbolic phase, one use word I to express itself. So in this next slide, which says that how a child get entry into symbolic realm. In the symbolic entry into a symbolic realm happens with the idea of here and gone. If you have watched my video on on the real of Lacan. So Sigmund Freud used words ta and da, the gone, here and gone. So the baby plays a kind of a game, and when the ball is away from the baby, he uses word gone or gone, alright, and when the baby gets the ball, he uses word here. So the use of these words mentions there is some kind of the ideas, and when the baby says, when the baby throw the ball away, the baby use word gone, and it signifies the idea of disappear or the idea of lake. Alright, so and when the baby pull the toy back, gets the toy back, the baby use word here to denote to the idea of presence. So I hope that you get that slide. So what's the in this slide? So the significance, what is the significance of language? Because it compensates the lake which happened to a child in the real. Alright, so the toy for the child is a little other. Alright, so the toy is something outside a baby's body. So the baby's self is self and the toy is another thing. So when the idea of loss or the absence of the toy gone shows the idea of absence, or shows the idea of the absence of other, and that makes a baby anxious or sad. Alright, so that shows that the baby is incomplete, and it's the gateway to the symbolic order or language. So the idea of lake, if you have copy and notes, kindly write this thing, that symbolic order, symbolic stage starts when a child perceives its lake. Alright, so the baby feels the idea that other things can be absent or mother can be absent. So the child enters into the symbolic stage, because after this the baby will use language. Kindly write down these words on your notes. So the language is based on the idea of lake. Lacan says that we use language because we have some kind of absence in ourselves. What we want is not with us. We want to acquire something, and that's why we use language. If our all needs are satisfied, we won't use any language. Simply that. So language provides signifier I. So language, we use word I, which is a signifier, which solidifies or which constructs or builds the self in the mirror. That it is I. The I denotes that this self in the mirror is this baby in the mirror is I. Alright, so this compensates the lake, because by creating an illusion of full presence, because before seeing itself in the mirror, the baby sees itself like fragmented. This is my thumb, this is my leg. The baby could not perceive itself and a whole individual. So when it sees in the mirror, the baby gets the idea that I am a complete body. So this compensates a little bit of the loss which happened in the real when the baby lost its mother. So I hope that you understand that slide as well. So in this slide, entering into the language and culture. So the ideas of other, small other and big small o other and big o other, and the idea of lake or absence, the identity which is based on the misidentification. If you haven't watched my video or part on the imaginary and the mirror, I will recommend you to watch that, please, as soon as possible. This is a video series and you must not miss any idea from that. If you want to get a complete understanding on Lacan, kindly I will recommend you, I will advise you to watch that. So these are things that the other, lack or absence or the misidentification of self happens to every individual on childhood level, but they form structure that babies form the structure for symbolic order or language. So they get the idea of language, and from there a child enters into the adult member of culture and self, and it becomes self in a language because the baby gets the chance to denote itself, I, in the word of language. So in this slide we get the concept of Derrida, center and desire. So it is very important if you get the idea of Derrida in Lacan, because Lacan would not make any significance if you are not aware of different other theories. So Derrida has the idea of center, like there is a center in every system. I've made a video on that. I will provide the link in the description as well. So Derrida says that there is a center in every system, and everything in that system is associated to that center, and center limits the the kind of movement of every elements in that system. So there are fixed meanings of every element in the system. If there is no center, there will be multiple meanings of every word or every element in the system, because they will be free to move to or get attached to every word. So Derrida used the word other with capital O to call the structural position in symbolic order. Alright, so the other with big O is a structural, is a center of the symbolic order. I will tell you what is that big other with big O. So the other with big capital O places everyone and trying to get rid of separation between self and other. So Derrida also says that everyone wants to get to that center. Everyone wants to achieve that place which is held by the center. Alright, so it's a little kind of complicated concept. So Derrida says that there is a big, so in the center there is a big O. Alright, big other with big O, capital O. So every element in the center wants to become that other with big capital O, but it will not happen. No one will happen. So after the loss from the mother, the baby will try to attach itself to the center, because the other with capital O is the center. So in the center, so the other in the center of a symbolic order, is the center of language itself as a structure. So the other with capital O is a center, and all elements are attached or related to it, but the other never merges with elements, and everything in system wants to be in its place, want to be in the other with capital O, its place. So place of the other creates and sustains so it will sustain. So everyone wants to become other, that big O other. So everyone wants to be that, but they will not become that, and there is a never ending desire to become that other, but it will not happen. And it's a never ending desire, it is a never ending lake. or desire is to be at the other and the center. If you read that slide, you will get the idea what I want to say. So this desire is unfulfilled for all people. So in this slide, the goal of the self, I have summarized that. So the goal of the self is to fall back to the real. All right, an individual's goal is to get back to the real, where there was no distinction between self and other. What was real? The mother's lap, the mother's breast was real, because there was no lake, there was no distinction between self and other there. So in this slide, which is audible in Lacan, so the phallus is at the penis. The idea of penis is at the center of the. So in the slide I will repeat again. There is the concept of audible in Lacan. How? So phallus, penis, which is also called penis, the male sex organ or reproductive organ, is thought as the center of the center of the system, of the symbolic system, because Derrida says that the center, the Western thought has also always prioritized male over female. So, and Freud also says that men are superior to women because men have penis, but women does not have penis. So keeping that idea in mind, you will get the idea that if you suppose, Lacan says that suppose penis is at the center of the system, or penis for men, or the laws created by men are at the center of the system, of the symbolic or this world system, and every person wants to become that kind of perfect, or they achieve that other, all right, that center. So in the mirror stage, that was pre-Oedipal stage, where the creation of self in relation to other is formed. The idea of other and self, the other and self want to merge with the other, in the second point I have mentioned the word other with capital O, so that whenever with the word other with capital O will come, you will get the idea that it means center. Alright, so male dominant center. Alright, so everyone wants to the other and the self wants to get to the center, or the other, or the big other. So Sigmund Freud says that important other, there is an important other in child's life, which is mother. Mother is an important other in child's life, because child wants to merge with mother. So for child, this other with big O is mother. Alright, so Lacan says that child demands to erase self and the other division. Alright, so Freud says this and Lacan says, I have written things very clear on slides because these are complicated ideas and I don't want to make them further complicated. So Lacan says that child desires to merge with mother and be what mother wants and tries to fulfill mother's desire. Alright, so I will tell you again in the next slide, there is a very interesting idea, because a child wants to desire what mother wants. Alright, mother is a female. In Western philosophy, it is thought, it is our culture. In the Western culture and philosophy, there is an idea that a woman cannot get the orgasm by its own. A female cannot get the orgasm by its own. But it will require a penis to insert into her vagina to help get her an orgasm. So in the last part, which says that mother's desire formed by her entry into the symbolic realm, because she is language using adult or self. And adult self is trying to achieve the other with capital O, where there is no lake. Alright, so lake with capital L is mentioned here. So this fits in Freud's Oedipal complex, where child want to have sexual intercourse with its mother, to fulfill its desire, to end the division between the self and other. Alright, so this idea of lake, or the lake of penis, and baby boy wants to fill her mother with his penis. I hope that you get this idea. If you have not, I will advise you again and again to get all the lecture I have uploaded on Lacan, or at least Lacan. Read at least, watch the videos of Lacan at least on my YouTube channel. I will provide you a reading list as well in the description box, because the ideas in this video are told in the links in the description box. So in this next slide, father is a structuring principle of symbolic. So keep to understand this topic, keep in mind the idea of castration complex and Oedipus complex in mind, the Freud's concepts of castration and Oedipus complex. So father is a structuring principle of symbolic order. So Freud says that threat from father breaks Oedipal desire. Oedipal desire is the marrying with mother. Alright, so and this threat from father, that the father will cut the baby's penis, the boy's penis, it is called castration complex. Alright, so the boy will suffer a lack of penis if he tries to fulfill the mother's lake. I have made videos on Sigmund Freud as well. So Lacan, you can watch that as well. So Lacan says that threat of castration, the cutting of penis, is a metaphor for the idea of lake. It is not the real father who threatens, but the idea of lake. The idea of lake, or the idea of absence of penis in baby's mind, on the boy's mind, which is important to the concept of language. So the father becomes a function of the linguistic structure. So father, or a male, or a patriarchal, or a patriarch, determines your linguistic structures. All the structures in language, how a language will, all the rules are made by a father, a male, a patriarch. Alright, so the father, who is other with small o, becomes a structuring principle of the symbolic. So explanation to this previous video, I haven't much explained into that, so because this is the explanation in this slide. So for Lacan, angry father in Freud's, for Lacan takes this idea from Freud, where angry father becomes the law, because you are afraid of that angry father, because if you will think to have sex with mother, the husband of your mother, which is your father, will get angry, and there are chances that he will cut your penis. So that angry father, he will cut your penis, so you have to obey what your father says. So your father become a person who gives you laws. I hope that you understand this concept. So submission to the rules of your father is equal to the submission to the rules of language, because rule of language are produced by your father or a patriarch. So the laws of father are important to enter, because you have to learn what your father creates, what laws your father creates, to enter into the symbolic order. Alright, so the symbolic order or symbolic stage, or whatever you call it. To become a language using subject, or entering to symbolic realm or the symbolic world or stage, you have to first obey the rules of the language which are produced by your father, which are created by your father. So, to conclude, Lacan says that the idea of structure of language and its rule are parental. Alright, so the rules of the language are given by your parents or your father. Alright, so entry into the symbolic realm creates a kind of superego. There are three things. Alright, if you know the idea of id, ego, and superego. So there is an id, which are your desires, what pleasure principle, and there is an ego. There is a superego, which is reality principle, that what needs to be done. So that idea of what needs to be done is given by your father, by a patriarch, by rules of the world. So they tell you that what will you do and what will you not do. So with whom you will have sex and with whom you will not have sex. So all these things are told by society to you, that what will you do and what will you not do. So it is called superego. So entry into symbolic is marked with the creation of superego. I hope that you understand this idea. So moving towards next slide, phallus is the center of the symbolic realm. Phallus is attached. Phallus is equal to penis, and penis is found in fathers and male figures and a patriarch, you can say. So phallus is equal to patriarch or father dominated or male dominated society. So the center of the symbolic order is male dominated, you can say that. So the law of the father, in another terms for other, the center of symbolic realm, are the things which govern whole structure. So at the center when you will watch the idea of Derrida's notion of center, I will put the link in the description. You will get the idea that the center of a system rules all the elements in the system. So the phallus, the penis or the male figure, the father figure in the center controls all the other elements in the system. Alright, so and it will determine that center, that father, that patriarch, that penis, that phallus will determine with whom you will have relationship, with whom you will have sex, with whom permission you will move, and for meanings. So that all will be told by the penis or the father. Alright, so the patriarchal structure of the symbolic realm is all about that. So phallus is a center which gives stability and anchors chains of signifier, which is the unconscious, which is in the unconscious is floating and shifting. Alright, so I hope that you get the idea completely. So phallus is a center of symbolic order, and it fixes one signifier, one word with one signified, with one concept. So that makes a very tight kind of, a very rigid and very solid kind of, a solid and never changing kind of system, where one word will only have one meaning. And there is a criticism on this structure by feminist critic who says that we need no center, so that every element will move freely and every word will have different meanings. So in the next slide, desire which never fulfills. So phallus is not same as penis, but it can be associated with penis, and if you want to get a smaller idea. So penis belongs to individual, phallus belongs to a structure of language. So no one has phallus because no one governs or rules language. Phallus is a center and governs whole structure. Everyone wants to achieve phallus or the center. Phallus is a center. So everyone wants to achieve phallus, but no one can get there. So you can recall the idea of other with big O, or Derrida's notion of center. So Derrida says that no element in a center can take place of the center of the in the system will take place of the sense of the center, and that's Lacan's definition of desire, which is never satisfied and can't rule the system. So in the next slide we have the civilization needs lake. Why a civilization needs lake? If you have watched my video on Sigmund Freud, the first video of Sigmund Freud I made on him, which tells the concept of the reality principle and the pleasure principle. The pleasure principle is like what I want to do. It's what are my instincts. I want to do things according to that. And if you will have sex all the time, you would not, and all your energy will be wasted in sex and in eating or other things. You will have no time to do something constructive or creative. So reality principle needs a kind of, so the pleasure principle is controlled by reality principle, and reality principle is what makes a civilization, because you will use that energies into other things, into sports, into art, into writing books or discussion, and it will create a civilization. So civilization needs lake, and Lacan idea is based on lake. Alright, so Lacan says that boys think that they can attain phallus or center because they have penises, and girls suffer tough time in realizing that they are not even eligible to attain the phallus or the center because they don't even have penises. So those who have penis are little near to the center, but those who don't have penis are very away from the center. Alright, so Western philosophy is based on binary opposition, and the presence is superior to absence. The presence of penis is superior to absence of penis. So presence is associated with penis, and absence is presence is associated with penis and order. So penis and order. So where are male, there will be order and system, and a rigid system, a never changing system, while absence is associated with women and disorder and chaos. So no one can be the phallus or center. We enter in the symbolic order and speak language which contains lake because of loss happened while separation from mother in the real. So it is important to become an adult and a part of culture and have language, so that everyone must have lake, loss and absence. If no one have lake or loss or absence, how will there be the need of language? And if there is no language, there won't be any civilization. So the Western philosophy prefers presence, which masks the facts that Western civilization depends on lake. Alright, if you have got this idea, if you have lake, if you have absence, you will have a civilization. It's a paradox. And it's a very interesting point, because the whole Western philosophy is based on the idea of presence. They appreciate presence. But your civilization needs absence. Alright? If there is no absence, there will be no language. And if there will be no language, there will be no civilization. But on the other hand, Western culture and civilization promotes presence. So it's a paradox. So in this slide, child sees otherness of the other as a gender. So it's a very interesting kind of thing, and other feminists use that thing to make their point. So there are differences in the anatomy of both sexes. One has penis and one has clitoris and vagina. So I'm talking about male and female. So it is very significant in Lacan, because Lacan draw two drawings, in which in first drawing he makes a tree and write tree on it. Alright, so he draws a tree and write tree on it. It's one painting. While on the other painting, he draws another painting and draw two rooms, two similar doors on that painting. Alright, so he draws two doors. On one door he writes ladies, and the other door he writes gentlemen. And both doors are same, but the words, signifiers, are different. One says ladies and other says gentlemen. So the identical signifiers are like, pictures are same, but signifiers are different. And I will tell you why. So Lacan explains this drawing by saying that trains arrive at a station. A little boy and a little girl, brother and sister, are seated in a compartment face to face next to the window, through which the buildings along the station platform can be seen passing as a train pulled to a stop. Look, says brother, we are at ladies. Idiot, replies his sister. Can't you see? We are at gentlemen. He explains that in the next slide. He says that the previous slide shows that how boys and girls enter into the symbolic realm. Symbolic realm is equal to the world. Alright. So how girls and boys into this world, into the symbolic order, differently. Alright, through the using of language. I will do this and one call itself him, another call itself her. Alright, so each child sees the other gender as something different and as something other. A boy thinks that the girls are other things, and that other is not seen good in Western civilization. So each child only sees the otherness of the other sex. The other sex, the females are other than what males are. A boy or a girl think like that. So the two door which Lacan draws creates a distinction of genders. I hope that you understand this slide. So there are two only slides left. One is conclusion and one is this one. So the satisfaction and center for boys and girls. So in taking up a position in the symbolic world, one has to pass through the gender marked gateways. The position of girl occupy is different than the boys in the structure of language. Boys are closer to the phallus because they have penis. But girls are very far from that, because girls don't even have penis. But at the end of the day, no one can get at the phallus or at the center. But boys are a little closer to the center, and girls are away from the center. Alright, so to conclude this whole part of Lacan, the lecture series on the Lacan will end with this slide. To conclude with a paradox. So one may think that the phallus or a center and real stage, so the center and the real stage are same, because both are the places where things are whole or satisfied or full or complete, and there was no lack. and both are the places that can't be accessed by human language, because you have noted that in the real there was no need of language. In the center also there is completion, there is a satisfaction, perfection, just like in the real. But there is difference between two as well, because both the phallus, the center, and the real stage are different, are opposite, because real is maternal. Alright, real is mother based, or based on mother. It's matriarchal, it's feminine. Whereas where real is maternal, and a place where we are fed and where we are nurtured and develop enough to interculture. But phallus is the idea of father or patriarch or order of culture. So which the position, and the position which rules everything in the world. So with that note, there is a paradox between the center, the phallus, and the real stage. So that's the end of this video. I hope that you will understand the whole idea of what Lacan want to say, and I will suggest you to watch the whole video again and again, because I have made these videos with with too much easy slides, with too much easy words. If you will watch the whole video and make notes and make compartments on the notes, and you will write the characteristics of each notes of each topic, you will get the idea, and you will never forget that idea in life. And it's a very interesting and important as well. So that was all, and if you have any inquiry, any questions, you can ask me in the comment section. I will love to reply you. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Thank you. You can also subscribe to this channel. You can share, like, and comment for further inquiry. Thank you.